While we were greeting, and he said, cutting into the time a little bit, Bob, don't be afraid of going a little bit over the lunch hour if you have to. So having said that, I'm going to still say the first words I was going to say from my message this morning, and they are this. For those of you who are already hungry, I apologize. Our topic today is the teachings of Jesus. And so, I mean, there's so many places that you can go, but I apologize because this morning we are going to talk about pizza. There you go. Now, before I read some scripture, I just want to lay a little bit of groundwork. My first job, when I was probably 15 years old, was a little pizza restaurant right next to our house. It was called, I'm going to change the name of the owner, it was called, let's just call it Edwin's Pizza. And I worked there for probably 4 or 5 years while I was before high school and then in high school for a few years on the weekends. And I remember back then that I really liked pizza. So it was a good thing that I was working there because I got a discount, and I enjoyed pizza with the works. You know, we were there and we'd make pizza for ourselves, and you throw everything on it, and that was really great. And later on, a few years later, I was going to Bible school in Peterborough, and I needed a part-time job, so I went down to the local pizza shop downtown and said, hey, I've got 5 years experience working in a pizza shop. Could I have a job? And they gave me a job working on the weekends, every now and then working. And I remember one of the best parts about that job, I was living in the dorm, and at the end of the night, the owner would say, listen, this stuff here has been out there for 5 or 6 hours. We're not using it tomorrow. You guys want to make yourselves a pie? You go right ahead. And so it was like, wow. So I loaded up, and I can remember one night I loaded up, and this looks good, and that looks good, and put extra cheese on it, and put it in the oven, and I took it out of the oven, and no word of exaggeration, I closed the pizza lid. It didn't actually close all the way. There was a bulge in the lid. There was so much stuff on that pie. And so going back to the dorms that night, it was probably by then 1 o'clock in the morning. But I just knocked on a few doors of some of the guys who I knew were staying over the weekend at the dorms, and woke them up, and we were all sitting around eating pizza, and it was like we were saying, this is the best pizza in the world, man, this is awesome. And it was really, really good. And that was all good. But then I took a trip to Italy. And I remember being at the hotel where we were staying, and we'd eat at the same place, and every day these pizzas were coming out, one after the other. And I looked over, and I remember saying to myself, there's nothing on those pizzas, like a plain pizza, you know, and it was coming out. So after the second day, I asked our waiter, I said, what's this pizza that's coming out? He said, oh, that's our most popular item on the menu. That's the margarita. And I said, well, what's on a margarita? Is that crust, sauce, cheese, olive oil? That's it. So I said, okay, I'm going to try it. I had one that day, I had the same one the next day, and I had the same one the next day. I had no idea that as far as pizza goes, sometimes less is better. Especially if the ingredients are of the highest quality, and that pizza is prepared lovingly by a pizzaolio. A pizzaolio is a pizza maker. That's a guy pizza maker. A pizzaiolia is a woman who makes pizza. So if you've got a pizza that's made by a pizzaolio and they're using the best ingredients, I'm telling you, it is one of the best things you can eat. Now I'm spoiled for pizza. If I go to a restaurant, I try the margarita, and I judge it on that. You see, many of us tend to think that more is better. We put on more ingredients. We invent newer and more complicated ways of doing things. We add customs and traditions and culture, not only to our cooking, but to our buildings, our social organizations, and even our religious beliefs. As an example, I have no doubt that most of us here share, as Paul quoted, a like precious faith. I would have no doubt about that whatsoever. But if we started drilling down into what we believe individually, there might be some areas that we might not agree on. You know, I remember when I was in Bible school, there was talk about the rapture. There was post-tribulation, pre-tribulation, and mid-tribulation rapture, right? And people would believe different things for different reasons. Some people believe one thing and another, but the basic tenets of our faith are all the same. Christ in us, the hope of glory. Pretty well, no matter which Christian church you go to, you'd have that core basic belief. But then we start adding on the extras. And like on a pizza pie, once you start adding on extra stuff, people will pick off what they don't like, right? Now sometimes we approach our faith like ordering a pizza. Which toppings do I want? You know, I like that church, but the music is too loud. Or this church has got a lot, music is just right, but all they sing are the old hymns. Or another church, these people lift their hands and they praise too loud. It's a little bit uncomfortable. Or maybe the pastor speaks too loud. All kinds of different things that we want to pick off. I remember one time when I was in Boston, and some friends of mine and I, we went to a noted pizza place. And we walked in there, and it smelled great, let me tell you. And there was a big menu there, and there was all kinds of things you could order. And we were hungry, and we were looking, and I think I want to get that. No, maybe I'm going to get this. And the guy behind the counter, there was a line behind us, and he said in his thick Boston accent, he said, you know, the sooner you order your pizza, the sooner you get to eat it. So we were in a pizza shop, and we were hungry, and we had money, but we couldn't decide on the toppings that we wanted. And I hadn't been to Italy yet, and I didn't know that crust, cheese, sauce, olive oil, and a bit of basil is the best, period. Anything else just takes away from that traditional pizza taste. This can happen with our faith. What am I going to believe? There are faith programs on TV, on the radio, on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. There's every sort of Christian denominational church. There are contemporary theologians that we could read. There are the writings of the early church fathers that we could read. There are the writings of the Christian mystics you could read. Even in the books of the Bible. Even in the Bible itself, there are books on the law. There are books on history. There are books of poetry and of wisdom. And there are prophetic books. I myself tend to gravitate towards the writings of Paul. I just happen to find them particularly enlightening and inspiring to me. But see, all of these things are what religion is built on. All of these things can be a distraction. I say I like the writings of Paul. There are professors who teach the Pauline epistles who potentially don't even know Christ personally, because all they've got is the information from the Pauline epistles, that they're studying it like an academic book. Anybody here been at the food court, the Charlottetown Mall lately? Anybody? If you go up there, it's getting sad. I used to go there because the best pizza in Charlottetown was there. Once in a while, I'll go have a slice of pizza. You're shaking your head. You know what I'm talking. You know the place I'm talking about. But it's closed now. So now there's a place that serves Asian food, and when you walk in there, there must be 50 pictures of different things. Everywhere you look, it's all pictures of different things that they have. And this past Friday, I went over there for lunch, and I was standing behind a man, and he was looking, and the gentleman was talking to him, and finally he said, you know what, it's too confusing. And he just turned around and walked away. Sometimes, when we add too much to our faith, too much to our religion, too much to what we present to the people outside, it can get too confusing. You see, if you take away all of the extras in our faith, all of the extras in our religion, what do you have left? You have a man who says, the words that I have spoken to you, they are spirit and they are life. It all boils down to that. The teachings of Christ. The teachings of Jesus, our Savior. Now, when you read the teachings of Jesus, it's pretty easy to see why religious people hated him. It's very easy to see. I'll just read a portion from Luke here. In Luke chapter 18, we read, Also he spoke this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and despised others. And he said, 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and the other a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself, God, I thank you that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this tax collector. I fast twice a week. I give tithes of all that I possess. And the tax collector, standing afar off, would not so much as raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. I tell you, Christ said, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humiliated, or humbled rather, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. So what's the difference? One was talking about what he did on the outside. The other did a devotion to God from the inside. And that's where Jesus put his focus on when he gave us his teachings. Over in Matthew we read, Ye have heard that it was said by them of old time, Thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say unto you that whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her has committed adultery with her already in his heart. The point he was making here is this. So you do all these good things on the outside. I'm interested in what's going on in the inside. Oh, and so you don't do all these other things that are bad on the outside. I'm interested in what's really going on in your heart. You see, 2 people can be doing the exact same thing. One can be doing it begrudgingly, and the other can be doing the same exact thing from love deep within their heart. And God looks on the latter and says, I am well pleased with this person. I am well pleased with what you are doing. See, God judges the heart. So he looks at the religious people and says, all that stuff that you think is important, it's not important. What's important is what's in your heart. The Lord does not see as man does, the scripture says, for man sees the outward appearance, but the Lord sees the heart. Do you know that 9 of the 10 commandments talk about outward action? 9. The last one talks about coveting. So also that would be an inward one. That's what goes on inside. But 9 of the 10 commandments are about outward. And there are probably people who keep all 10 commandments. There are probably people who wouldn't even consider themselves to be Christians who keep all 10 commandments. Just it's because it's a good way to live. But keeping the 10 commandments is not what is going to bring you closer to Christ. It's what goes on in your hearts. In Matthew chapter 22 we read this, 22:34-40. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees and Pharisees, the Pharisees got together. So there was 2 groups of priests in those days, the Sadducees and the Pharisees. Does anybody know the difference between the Sadducees and the Pharisees? I already told you this, but does anybody know? That's right. That's right. You see, the Pharisees believe in the resurrection of the dead. The Sadducees don't believe in life after death, so they're Sadducee. Right? That's an easy way. That's an easy way to remember that. So one of the Pharisees said, and he was an expert in the law, tested him with this question. Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? We just finished talking about the 10 commandments. And there's many, many others too in the Old Testament. Which is the greatest commandment in the law? Jesus replied, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. You see, the teachings of Jesus, they bring us back to the basics. They bring us back to our first love. It's from the heart that we serve God. And we know this because we read, as a matter of fact, I think I heard these words last Saturday. It says, if I speak in the tongues of men and of angels and have not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. The teachings of Jesus bring us back to that. It brings us back to what is in our own hearts. In Proverbs we read, let love and faithfulness never leave you. Bind them around your neck. Write them upon the tablet of your heart. Then you will win favor and a good name in the sight of God and man. The teachings of Christ remind us that our service to God must not be from duty. Our service from God is not because of the particular religion that we were born in. Our service from God is a genuine love, a genuine service to Him that resides deep within our hearts. Even the world knows it's what's on the inside that's important, not what's on the outside. Even the world knows that in order to change our behavior, they have to change what we believe in. Even businesses know that in order for us to change our behavior, they have to change how we think about things. Did you know that a full-page black and white ad in the Wall Street Journal costs, you ready for this, $164,000? If you want that same ad in color, it's $220,000 or $210,000 to have an ad in the paper yesterday, full page. Now, corporations spend that kind of money. Now, that's not even counting the ad agency that created the ad for them. That's just putting the ad in the paper. Corporations spend that kind of money because they know that it affects people's behavior, because it gets them to look at that brand new Lincoln, and it gets them to think, yeah, that's a nice car. And so the next time they're going shopping for a car, they're going to go and at least check it out, and maybe they'll buy one. See, they understand that if they can change the way we think, they can change our behavior. So God has told us that right from the very beginning. He says, I want you to serve me from your heart. What's really going on deep inside. I do not want you to serve me because you're afraid or you're whatever. I want you to serve me because you love me. I want you to love me and serve me from a heart filled with love. And that's why we read in Psalm 119, verse 11, thy word have I hid in my heart, that I might not sin against thee. You see, if I set things right in my heart, I don't really have to worry about not doing things on the outward. I'm way, way past it if in my heart I've made a decision. I'm way past it if in my heart I have a direction. I'm way past it if in my heart I want to please God in everything that I say and do. It's from the heart. Back to my first job. Edwin's Pizza. Remember that place? Now, the big sign said Edwin's. It wasn't pizza, it was pizza. P-I-T-S-A. And I worked there for a while, and one day I said to Edwin, I said, why do you call it Edwin's Pizza? We're not, he says, because I don't sell pizzas. He goes, what do you mean? He says, I sell pizzas, they're different. I make them different. And he said, the reason for that is I used to work for a pizza franchise. I was their manager. And I realized I could do it better than them, so I worked on my own formula, and over time I built my own recipe, and then I left. But I'd signed a non-competition agreement with them that after I left for however long it was, I could not sell pizzas. So he said, I wasn't selling pizzas, I was selling pizzas. P-I-T-S-A, right? So, yes, he might have followed the letter of the law. but he was not certainly following the spirit of that agreement. Would you agree? A lot of people live their Christian lives like that too, right? Long as I'm doing this, I'm going to be okay. You know, saying that we love God, and yet we don't love our neighbors or each other. See, Jesus said, no, I'm not really worried about what is going on the outside. I'm worried about what's going on the inside, because that certainly will affect what happens on the outside. It'll be much more beautiful and much more glorious than anything we could do on our own. Because all of our righteousness are as filthy rags. We know that. See, on the one hand, we have religion. All the buildings. I was privileged one time to go to Notre Dame before it burnt. And let me tell you, the word awesome doesn't begin to describe that place as it was. It truly was a magnificent place, and it truly, truly made you kind of soar to the heavens with the grandeur of it all. It was simply amazing to think that that was built, started about 1,000 years ago. So we have religion and all the trappings that come with religion. The buildings that we have, the rituals that we have, the garb that is worn, all of those things. The pastors, the priests, the theology, and the statements of faith. And all of it says, come and join us. Come, join us. We welcome you. Come on in. On the other hand, we have one solitary figure, standing in contrast to all of the trappings of man's religion. And we read about that in Isaiah 53, verses 1 and 6. Who has believed our report, and to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. He has no form nor comeliness. And when we shall see him, there is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid, as it were, our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. Yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was laid upon him. And the Lord has laid upon him the iniquity of us all. And with his stripes we are healed. You see, he is the one. And he says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hear my voice and open the door, I will come into him and will sup with him and he with me. He says, it's not us that's inviting them. It's us inviting him. Because it's what's in our hearts that will draw. He says, I will sup with him and he with me. Back to pizza. Every pizza I ever ate had crust, sauce, and cheese on it. But before I went to Italy, I was always focused on the toppings. Which ones and how many of them? Double pepperoni, right? Double hamburger. Every pizza I ever made when I worked at Irwin's Pizza for those 5 years had crust and cheese on it. Only the toppings changed. But I was only 16, 17 years old, and I was throwing ingredients together and putting them in the oven. The pizzas were good, but they weren't great. Why was Italy so different? Good ingredients, yes, but also put together by Pizza Aglio. Now, pizza began in the city of Florence in Italy. And if you go to the city of Florence and you read any travel books, I read Conte Nast, the best pizzeria in Florence is called L'Antica Pizzeria di Michele. Best pizzas in Naples. And the review for that place in that travel magazine says this: talk to anybody who has been here or read the reviews, and you'll see plenty of people calling it the best pizza they've eaten in their lives. The queues are always long, but the atmosphere among fellow customers waiting is buzzing. Because everybody knows, get this, because everybody knows this is close to a religious experience. Pizza, right? If you thought you were happy waiting, you should see how happy you are leaving. That's a pretty good review right there. Here's what I want to leave you with. The pizzas at L'Antica Pizzeria da Macelli are not thrown together by high school students. All right? But by people with a passion for their craft. By people who do it with love. You watch the cooking shows on YouTube, and the real chefs, they say the first ingredient is love. It's not the $8 an hour that I get for doing this. It's love. So they have a passion for their crafts, and they've been doing it since 1870. That pizza place. So your service to Christ and His teachings is not simply a matter of having all the right ingredients, of going to the right church and doing the right things and doing all of the things that are tenets of our faith. It's not that. It must come from the heart. It must have passion. You have to dedicate your life to it. If you dedicate your life to something as simple as a pizza, people come from all around the world to go there. If you dedicate your life to your service of Christ, people will come. Jesus Himself said, if I be lifted up, I will draw all men unto me. So how do we lift them up? Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord. And whatsoever ye do in word or deed, do all in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God and the Father by Him. From now on, when you are sitting down at a restaurant, or you are sitting down at your table, and you are about to take a bite of that first pizza slice, I want you to remember that if it's done well, and if it's done with passion, the basics are always better than the toppings. Always. And if you serve Christ with passion and love, you don't need anything else. You don't need to be able to sing or play the guitar or preach or do any other thing to serve Him. You just be the best that you can be and serve Him from a heart, and people will see in you something that they want. God bless you. Amen.